Have you ever experienced a perfect moment in time?
Smooth as an android's bottom, eh, Data?
I beg your pardon, sir?
This mission is over.
It is not over.
You're really going to risk igniting the exhaust? All right. I will.
You heard it up top. We are boldly going again, as we've gone many times, but this time we're going to a magic planet. That's right. Here on Normies Like Us, it's Star Trek Insurrection with your hosts, Ensign Colin,
Mike, son of Moog.
And this is, once again, Captain Jake Luke Picard at your service.
Getting too old for this.
Back.
Getting a little too old, unless I go to this planet, and then maybe I won't be.
Yeah. Imagine a planet or like a nebula that could, give you your wildest dreams or solve all your problems, like some kind of nexus or, if only there was, a place you could go where everybody knows your name. But you now know our names, and we're here for the 9th time and 10th if we count Galaxy Quest. We're talking, the next in the long line of Star Trek feature films with Insurrection. We've done it.
That's right. Star Trek Insurrection, the 3rd Next Generation movie, the 9th overall movie, like you said. And I'm excited to talk about it. How you feeling?
It's wild, guys? Yeah. We're kind of getting to the end of the original Trek movies, well, original in TNG, and then it's going to be a Abrams Trek, which is a weird thing to think we're right on the cusp of. And I haven't seen those in a long time, but meanwhile, this there is some fortuitous timing. We can maybe just tease this here, but again, there's also now the 3rd season of Picard is wrapped up coincidentally, which we mentioned earlier. It kind of feels like that show is almost a continuation of the films in a way, but so that's kind of some interesting, some good luck, I'd say.
Yeah, you guys are getting some good Trek content. I've been playing Star Wars, watching Star Wars because there's a Star Wars show going on. I felt a little detached from Trek for like a minute. I'm super happy to be back.
Well, let me ask you this, Colin. So, like you said, interesting timing with doing these movies because we have Picard season 3. Now, we've talked about this show a few times on our podcast before. Season 1 and 2, not our favorite, me and Mike. I would say very badly written. I've had a lot of harsh things to say about it.
Season 3 on the other crazy hand, things about it,
yeah.
Not been kind, me neither.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend them to you, Colin. But I would recommend this newest season, season 3, because it's done a complete 180 in the way that I think few shows really ever have, where it's this season 3. I mean, it's a different showrunner. It's the TNG reuniting the entire cast. It's just a very different feel. And like you said, it does feel like one of these TNG movies. And I would say it's absolutely worth checking out just the 3rd season. You don't need to watch the first 2. All you really need to know is that Picard is now in a positronic robot body that ages in the exact same way that an elderly man would, and he's going to die at a normal time. But regardless, it's not really important. Like, there's nothing you really need from the first 2 seasons to watch this 3rd season. Would you agree with that, Mike?
I would agree with that. Even the finale, not spoiling anything, but like, even if there are what would be considered a callback, I don't think it's required. Because just having knowledge of TNG in general, I think you would get it.
And they'll explain anything you need to know.
Yeah, they'll fill
Except, who's this Raffi character? Doesn't matter. It's not important.
Yeah. Just chilling with Worf. Yeah, but I think it's definitely worth checking out. It's of the next gen movies. If we look at it like that, it's definitely in the top 25% of them. I don't know. Like, it's better than most.
Maybe the best.
Okay.
I'll say, maybe it's a hot take, but I think Picard season 3, it's like a 10-hour movie, and it's the best TNG movie out of all of them. I think better than First Contact, which is probably my favorite. So I would absolutely recommend anyone who enjoys the Next Generation, check out Picard season 3. Like I said, they had a new showrunner, Terry Matalas, who was writing on season 2. He wrote the first 2 episodes, which coincidentally are the 2 best episodes of that season. And then he left to start developing this 3rd season. And that show went really downhill in the 2nd season after that. So I'll say, yeah, definitely check it out. And without spoiling too much, the way it ends, there may be some potential for spin-off. And Terry Matalas has said that he's interested in kind of following this spin-off. I don't even want to say too much about it just because it's very spoiler heavy for what happens in this season. But
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces get moved on the chessboard of Star Trek, I guess. There's some interesting developments in that season. So
and it is a lot of member berries, like nostalgia type stuff, which you can recognize and enjoy and still recognize that that's what it is. But if it's done in a way that works within the context of the plot, then I'm not against it. So,
but once again, it's like 2 seasons of Patrick Stewart getting his way, not understanding what people like about Star Trek, and then him finally being like, "Well, fine, all right, here you go."
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Like he didn't want it to just be a TNG reunion. In the first 2 seasons, they introduced this whole cast of new characters. It's basically a completely different show, just with Picard in it. You have 7 of 9 there, but other than that, it's like all original characters. And most people just didn't care about any of them. And then they pretty much scrapped everything except Raffi, like I mentioned, who ends up in a relationship with 7 of 9. And 7 of 9 comes back in season 3. But other than that, it's the TNG reunion that probably everybody wanted. After Nemesis did poorly, people are like, all right, well, I guess we're not getting another movie. That's the end of Next Generation.
Wait, Nemesis
forever.
is bad? I was looking forward to Tom Hardy. Come on.
Well, stay tuned, Normies. We'll find out.
Hold on. You're telling me to skip season 2 and the return of Punk on bus or car or train,
yeah.
the hell he's
That's
on
right.
in the future?
Kirk Thatcher, that is a good moment within that show. But mostly...
And he made that song, as we learned in our trivia.
That's right. Other than that...
Cobb quiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrath of Cobb. But it is interesting, Jacob, like you say, because Nemesis didn't do great. I think fans of the show, and we've brought up, like, the tone of the movies is completely different than, like, the tone of the show. Like, Picard's demeanor and some of the characters are treated differently. That's like Patrick Stewart wanting to get his way. And then it's weird that it's like 20-some years later, and now we have a 3rd season of a Picard show. It's like just a weird... It's almost like seeing the original crew come back 20 years later to start doing their feature films in the 80s or whatever. Like, it's a weird... That time gap is existing
it is really
again.
Weird.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's
kind
even
of a
some
poetry.
riffs on... They do steal certain things just from the history of Star Trek, from the original movies. There's some Wrath of Khan in there. And, like I said, full of references and stuff for nostalgia for fans that appreciate that kind of thing, while also having an interesting plot, touching on the Dominion War, touching on the Borg. All of your favorite enemies are there. So check it out, Normies.
Character development. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely it's made for the fans, but not exclusively a Easter egg fan fest, right? So they know what they're doing, at least with season 3. But we're doing Insurrection now. 3 times 3 is 9, and that's how many of these Star Trek movies we've watched. Well, we're at 7 of 9, then 8 of 9, and now 9 of 9. But had we seen this, Colin, what's your experience with this movie? Yes. I've only seen it once ever before this. So what's your history?
So to refresh listeners on my history, I had kept building up this story of what is my first Star Trek film in theaters. It had turned out to be First Contact, but if you guys remember, for a long time, I thought it was this film, Insurrection. Mm-hmm. My brother corrected me because of the Borg stuff. I remember vividly seeing this in theaters, guys, and we'll talk about everything about it. But the moment that I, to this day, has stuck with me for some reason is Picard turning to the kid and being like, "You must be really old." And
yes.
Being like, "No, it doesn't kick in till puberty." Little Colin being like, "That's so smart. That's so cool and interesting."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was one of my favorite lines. You and I, Euro 75. Yeah, and we learned there's a magic planet. We'll get into it.
Magic. We'll get into it.
We'll get in.
I remember not liking it, and I've seen it once since then. I kind of remember being bored by it. I'm coming in with a take on this. We'll talk our first reactions once we jump into it and start talking it. But I think there is something here. But Jacob, what is your history with this movie?
I think I saw this when I was younger, and I sort of remembered it, but I was like, I remember not liking it as well, and just being kind of bored by it. And that's that's about it, really. Like, there's nothing that really stood out for me too much. Rewatched it again like a year ago when I was going through all these movies, and yeah, we'll get into it. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I had only seen this once, in college, like maybe 10 years ago now. Geez, I went through and I just watched all the Star Trek movies because I'd never done it. So I only did one run. I don't have, a ton of memories about this really before rewatching. Like I knew, Magic Planet, Invisible Ship, blah, 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 right?
The big points. Mike.
Yeah, Well, we've seen stories like this in Star Trek, and we'll talk about that too. Of like, oh, we need to recloak. We'll get into it, but this is not something that has not been done before in TNG, even. But some familiar ground we're treading. But definitely not one that stuck with me. I was always a First Contact person, but I guess we'll just have to see how we're feeling as we dive into our rewatch of Insurrection. And don't forget, at the end of this, we also have the Wrath of Cobb quiz, as we always do for these. Looking forward to that as well.
It returns.
I've had 40 years of apprenticeship, so I'm ready to finally take the test and move on to...
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be great. So catch you on the next side of this invisible force field right after this, Normies.
We're back here on Normies Like Us, where we're talking our 9th Star Trek film in our Star Trek film watch-along here on Normies Like Us, Star Trek Insurrection. We're going to dive in, talk about how this film was made, who it was made by. Guys, are you okay? Jacob, I noticed you took your glasses off. Is everything all right?
I'm stretching my skin out a little bit. Just getting a little rejuvenated.
In my vision, repairing itself. It's pretty wild.
3 glasses wears. All of our vision is getting better. I've never seen a sunrise, but we'll talk all about it. Let's talk first about this film.
This film came out in 1998. Doesn't seem that long ago, but that is 25 years ago.
Does not seem that long ago. That's so scary to me.
No. But it's true. And,
are we the Baku? Are we ancient?
I think so.
Right.
We need that planet so we can slow down time a little bit. But now, who's behind this, you might ask? Well, if you remember Generations First Contact, we had, we're following the trend of hiring these Star Trek brain trust people who are involved in different Star Trek writer rooms. For those movies, it was, Brandon Braga and Ronald D. Moore. This one, and of course, First Contact was also directed by Jonathan Frakes, number one himself. And this movie was also directed by Jonathan Frakes, and it was written by Michael Piller, who is another writer involved with Star Trek. He actually was a showrunner. He showran Next Generation for a couple years. Then he left to co-create Deep Space Nine, showran that for the first 2 seasons, then handed that off to Ira Stephen Bear, went on to co-develop Voyager and showran that for 2 years. So he's been involved in this very extensively in this era of Star Trek in the late 80s and 90s.
That's pretty wild because you think like Roddenberry, original series, a little bit of input on some of the feature films and stuff, but like, then you have this guy that you're saying, Berman, right?
Well, Rick Berman, I was going to mention, he's of course, the overseer of all of Star Trek at this time. He's sort of the Kevin Feige of Star Trek, and he did help develop the story as he did for all these TNG movies. Not a good guy. I've mentioned him before. We'll talk about him maybe a little later. A lot of controversy surrounding him and, bad decisions that kind of can be traced to him. But he was involved with this one as well. Michael Piller is a guy that I like because he wrote a bunch of well-known TNG episodes like The Best of Both Worlds. Okay. And, he started DS9, even though I do think it got better when Ira Stephen Bear took over. He's a guy that knows his Star Trek, I would say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was just going to say, sadly, he passed away in 2005 due to cancer, I believe.
And that's right when we're getting into the Abrams verse. But yeah, Michael Piller kind of having a hand in launching or continuing 3 like massive Star Trek shows. Like that's pretty interesting, I guess is what I was trying to say. So good on him.
Yeah. This movie, so, Patrick Stewart, we've talked about him in the past. He wanted to be more action man. He felt Generations felt like a longer episode of the show. Then First Contact felt like a much more of a movie. He became sort of an action movie guy. Now he's saying, you know what? I like doing the action thing. let's try to bring it a little bit back towards the TV side and kind of split the difference between those first two. And again, this movie does feel like an extended episode of the show.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on that, right?
That's one of the first things I thought when we were watching, as I was watching it. I'm like, this does just feel like a 2 or 3 parter, like you just throw on a Sunday afternoon and like let it ride.
And it feels, much lower stakes than First Contact. First Contact, you brought back the Borg, the big enemy of Picard. This one, we're going to scale it down a little bit. It's going to be a little lighter in tone. There's going to be more comedy, one-liners kind of thrown in there. It's going to be much smaller stakes. We're just dealing with this planet, 600 people or whatever. What are you guys' feelings generally on this movie, though?
Well, we're 9 films into Star Trek movies. So are we experts? Do we kind of know what a Star Trek movie is?
I think so.
I would say. I guess you kind of have to ask yourself after watching these, it's like, why does one need to exist? Why isn't it just an episode of the TV show? Although, again, obviously, this is set much further. There is no more TNG going on. So it's kind of just an excuse to keep going.
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to bring something to the table to explore. And can I ask you a spoiler for a month from now, Jacob? Is Nemesis also the product of this brain trust board?
No. So that's the big difference with Nemesis.
Okay.
Like basically for the first time, they hire this outside talent, which the OG movies were doing occasionally, but a director who's never done anything with Star Trek, a writer who's never done anything with Star Trek in Nemesis. So it'll have a very different tone, let's say.
So we're 9 films in, but of these TNG ones, right, specifically, they have not yet done, like you're saying, the weird kickoff of let's hire a guy who doesn't know anything about Star Trek and see what he thinks Star Trek is, which the old films really found some success for. Spoiler alert, I know that the TNG films won't then, based on the product that is that last one. But it's very interesting that then we're going to get into the J.J. Abrams universe, where I will just solidly say, I think that is 3 films of 2 directors who are not Trek guys at all. So you just get a whole run of a universe where there's not sort of the brain trust or the real Trekky vibe of it, right?
I'm excited when we get to the Abrams movies because I think J.J. Abrams, you're right. He's not a Trek guy. He's a Star Wars guy, and he wanted to make Star Wars. Ended up making Star Wars, but before that he made Star Trek, and he just like said, "I'm going to make this like Star Wars," basically. So
put it on his resume.
And John M. Chu is like, he's just like, I like action figures and toys guy. In the movie he makes, you're like, fuck yeah, you do, dude. This is great.
Oh yeah.
But I think like, just real quick to end, like we have to think about like, why does a Star Trek movie deserve to exist? Then again, to not just be those episodes, and I think this one actually does an interesting job where it asks a question, not unlike my beloved Whales in Space one, where it's literally them being like, should we fucking like do some good stuff and like take care of some things and like make one with a message? This one, I think, kind of does an interesting deconstruction of a core Star Trek message, which is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And this film says like, what's the cutoff for the many? Like, what is it to say that this amount of people versus this amount of people really is that different?
Right. And I'll say this, because this is maybe my biggest takeaway from this movie is that, it's doing the classic Star Trek morality tale, right? My biggest problem with this movie is that I don't really agree with the choices that Picard and the rest of the crew of the Enterprise make in this movie. In fact, I think they're doing the wrong thing, and I would have done the opposite of what they did. So this you can kind of see why this might not be my favorite one, because I just don't agree with the side they're on, I guess, in this movie.
Yeah, and I guess, there'll be spoilers here. Just a setup, I think, because there's not much plot to work through, really. So just set up the moral conundrum. No. It's essentially there's a couple hundred people on this planet. They do not age. They're in their prime for their whole life. Once they hit, once they're grown up, they stop aging. Yeah. And then there's go ahead if you want to.
Well, it's sort of the fountain of youth myth, right? This planet has these special aging properties where you don't age, you don't have any kind of sickness or anything. If you're blind, you start your eyes start regenerating and things. So you can actually get younger by visiting this planet and healthier. And the morality here is that, as we learned, Starfleet wants to use this special ability, spread it throughout the world to help potentially millions of people, right?
Billions, they say.
600,
billions.
a very key amount. 600 people populate this planet versus an endless amount of life that will be saved and rejuvenated because of this problem.
Multiple galaxies, worlds. Yeah, come on.
And you're right, Colin. You're getting into the Star Trek maxim. The good of the many outweigh the few, or the one. So, the Federation wants to take these properties and spread them all over the galaxy, whereas these people are like, this is our home. We want to stay here. Also, they have to be relocated in order for this process to work.
We have to relocate them. So they were going to do it secretly. They were going to teleport them into this ship, secretly relocate them, and then they could have all the radiation and whatever. Because whatever their testing is, it would make the planet inhospitable, I guess. So it's like, we got to get them out of here, but it's hopefully going to save billions of people. So that is the moral conundrum. There's a little bit of tie-in with the villain, and we can talk about that later, but pretty much that's it. Do we move 600 people to help 1 billion people? And Picard says, we don't. I think just because he has a crush on that lady. I think he's not making clear decisions.
This is where he's kirking it up. And just to say, the very clear metaphor we can make is when we move a native Alaskan tribe to drill as much oil as we can, right?
Yes.
That's true.
That's what we're framing.
That's a good point. And it, again, it falls into the Prime Directive discussion, which has been had many times in different episodes of when do we use the Prime Directive? When do we break it? Different Star Trek captains and characters have bent or broken the Prime Directive in the past under certain circumstances. So
God, if Kirk had gone down to that planet and gotten more virile, we would.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
That's how the villain should have been in Generation. Should have been Kirk finding this planet and just becoming such an egomaniac.
Right. I think Picard, it's already turning Picard more into a Kirk kind of guy.
Yeah.
Because Picard's willing to resign from Starfleet, and this is where the insurrection of the title comes in.
Right.
He's willing to side with this group of 600 colonists over the Federation, and the Federation, of course, is working with these other aliens, the Sona, which have their own thing going on. What do you guys think? Would you have done what Picard does, or would you have said, no, I think the greater good is more important. We can move these people to a different planet and, help billions of people?
Here's the issue I'm having, because it is tricky, because we've seen, like I said at the open, there's episodes where we have like a Native American tribe in space that's being relocated. We've done this thing, but the twist on it is this culture has already been warp capable, and they chose to not do it. So we can kind of, the Prime Directive sort of doesn't apply, which then makes me wonder, why don't you just have a fucking dialogue with them and be like, yo, 600 of you, you're kind of hogging this technology that could help a lot of people, selfish. Instead of just hiding in what are you doing? Just talk to them. It's anyway, yeah.
This is
this home. Community, I should mention, like you said, they're anti-technology. It's not that they don't have or don't know about technology, it's they choose to not use it. They're return, tradcaths or whatever, who want to live off the land in a simpler way. But they do know they have warp capabilities, so the Prime Directive doesn't apply in the same way that it would if they didn't. And I should also mention, these aliens, the Baku, who just happen to look like all white people, right?
Oh yeah,
they look like white humans.
Thank God.
And the spring collection from the Gap, yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of cotton linens.
They're this, extremely isolationist population of white people who just want to live off the land. And Picard's like, you know what? These people are worth resigning from Starfleet in order to.
He gets radicalized.
Yeah, he wants to insurrect. He wants to January 6th the Federation.
Starfleet. He does. I was wondering when we start watching this, what's the insurrection? Who are we insurrecting against? I'm like, oh, we're doing it against Starfleet. Wild.
Data was the fucking shaman. He came in with a big water buffalo on his head. Face.
Wild.
And
yeah. So.
we've done these Starfleet is evil, or Starfleet has been corrupted, or there's bad actors inside of Starfleet or the Federation plenty of times, even up to Picard season 3, to mention that again without spoiling too much. But of course there's been bad admirals,
Admirals, yeah.
Badmirals, if you will.
Badmirals, yeah. That's great.
And again, I think the villain, the villains of this, it suffers from the MCU problem where the villain actually has some good points, but then they also have to make them like explicitly evil to be like, no, these are the bad guys. See, he's like, he wants to kill people. Even though he has a completely good point, and he's actually right, in my opinion.
Should we set up the motivation of the villains then? Because what we learned that the Baku, they left their old planet, flew here just to chill, but some of them wanted to live with the technology. And then because of that, now they're aging and shit's getting fucked up. And so they're like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the twist of it, because when we're first introduced, we have the Baku and the Sona, what we think are two different alien races. The Baku,
they
like
look
I mentioned,
so different, Jacob. These aren't just white people in Gap clothes. How could
they got to staple their face. They're Beverly Hills white people.
Yeah, but as we find out, because
skin.
they left, over 100 years ago, they started aging, so their skin is all loose. They have all these anti-aging measures that they're trying to do to.
Well, you really feel the writers being like, "What would Star Trek plastic surgery look like?" And you're like,
right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, they look great. Obviously it's working.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely like, we're running out of ideas and we need to pull the trigger on this youth planet now.
Today.
Yeah.
So we find, the main
They team up with the Starfleet Admiral. Yeah. They're like, hey, there's this planet. We can go there.
Yeah. So the main bad guy is Ruafu, played by F. Murray Abraham.
Mark Ruafu is his full name. Mark Ruafalu.
Ruafu. Wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mark Ruafu.
That's great.
Nice.
Gamma radiation caused that.
That's right. He gets radiated.
And they're working sort of in secret with Starfleet, and they're going to, like you said, put these people inside of a giant holodeck to make them think they're still in their village. Kind of a devious plan right there. But
haven't they done that exact thing, though? That's got to be from an episode where they like...
Probably.
I mean, at least the Irish colony, they, had them in the cargo bays, but that's a different... They didn't trick them. There's Space Irish. Right. Star Trek is weird.
Space Irish. Yeah. Like you said, they've done this idea or this similar idea before.
You know what was really hitting me? The Strange New Worlds Una episode. What were her people called? The Illyrians?
Yeah, Illyrians.
Some of them modified themselves. Some of them didn't, right?
Yeah, and that became like a big difference. Yeah, not bad.
And again, like you mentioned, the Baku, they're not even indigenous to this planet. They moved here from a different planet.
Yeah, you assholes.
Yeah, and they're just hogging the fountain of youth, essentially, the way I look at it.
I've lived here for 5 years. I think I would know where my home world is. You're like, wait, how long?
You came here in a Bentley?
So it's it sort of mixes that allegory of like, indigenous people being relocated forcibly. But it is, it's an interesting, it's a Star Trek-y worth discussion. Like there would have been a regular season episode like this, and this is just a longer version of that.
Yeah, just the way they present it, like they're trying to put a twist. Oh, but they came here, but like it ends up kind of diluting the message of forcibly relocating indigenous peoples at that point, and that's why it's like hard for me to be like, Picard, I don't know if you did the right thing, man. Like I don't know.
It's not like it's their religion.
No, they just chose.
They just like living there.
Yeah.
And
which is fine.
Again, like you said, a lot of things could have been worked out or solved by talking. Diplomacy. That's kind of what the Federation is supposed to.
Oh, isn't that a Star Trek thing, especially a Next Generation thing? We talk it out. No, not in the movies.
But no, we've got a bad admiral who wants to secretly do all this stuff. So that's that.
That's pretty much the movie, the stakes, and what we're dealing with. And, we get a third act, punch him up and shoot him up. Like, oh, we're going to wipe him out anyway. We need to get on the planet. It's like, everybody gets desperate. But pretty much that's it. The core is that moral question. And it does feel like a long episode. It also feels very low budget, like an episode, because it's just in the California desert,
But the cast feels so low budget too. We're not really introducing any movie stars. F. Murray Abraham really isn't anybody at this point. And who plays the Admiral? To me, I'm looking at him. I'm like, were you in like a Seinfeld episode around this
Anthony
time?
Zerbe. He's been in some stuff, but he's not a huge name or anything.
Right.
And then Picard's love interest in this, Anij or whatever, it's played by Donna Murphy, who was a Broadway star before this. So not really a big movie star, not really someone who was into Star Trek or anything. But yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And I mean, to start it off, we get. I just want to mention this first scene. Well, we have Data's sort of going rogue for reasons we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
But then we cut up to the Enterprise 1701E. We see a bunch of that in this movie, which is interesting, and we see our crew in dress uniforms, looking great. They got the white.
I did like those
suits.
Yep. Look, I suck when it comes to Star Trek fashion because I told you guys in the motion picture, I thought their pajamas were really cool that they're running around in that movie the whole time. I thought these outfits were maybe the coolest we've seen in Star Trek so far. They fucking rule.
Yeah, I did like these formals.
They're looking sharp. And I think this first scene.
The fish course.
Yeah.
I actually really like this first scene because you've got, it's a classic TNG thing where you got some random alien race coming on board. They're doing some diplomacy stuff, making small talk or whatever. It's light. It's fun. I'm like, this is a throwback to the show. I like this.
I didn't like the first contact boat holodeck stuff. This to me
this is
felt
a better way to
start. Like a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get, Worf, what are you doing here? And like, there's a lot of shit going on. They're just like, wow, we're so busy on the Enterprise E. And I did like this opening scene. I'm like, wow, this feels like we're in for
just a nice
ride.
Throwback to the vibe of the show. It's not super action heavy. And like you said, they bring Worf. Worf is on DS9 at this point, of course. They're constantly having to think of ways to bring him back. In this one,
I like that they just cut it off.
Why are you here?
He's like, I was on a planet. And they're like, I'll catch you later. I got to do something. Like, they don't even let him explain it. Picard's like, oh, yeah, hold that thought. I got to go. So,
and I wasn't appreciating this as a kid. I hadn't seen Deep Space Nine, but when he's like, call Deep Space Nine. Tell them we're borrowing Worf for a minute. I'm like, yeah.
Even bringing up stuff.
Said DS9.
Like the enemy aliens that start with an S and have an apostrophe too. I can't remember the name. The Sanu or whatever.
The Sona.
They're talking like, they're making Ketracel white, and like that's a Deep Space Nine thing, and it's like, okay. So little Easter eggs there, which I appreciated getting those.
It's cool.
They were selling shit to the Dominion.
Ketracel white, which is what the Jem'Hadar, it's the drug that the Jem'Hadar are forced to use, so they stay addicted and they stay loyal to the Dominion. They're the Dominion foot soldiers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So a
little lip service to DS9. Yeah, I like to see that.
And so you get the nice formal uniforms. Then you get the main uniforms of this movie, which I forgot to mention the First Contact one last time, but they're rocking the new DS9 look, which is the gray jacket,
shoulders,
colored undershirt
sweaters
to demote, section. Like engineering is yellow, command is red.
I didn't realize that was a DS9 special. Wow.
Yeah, that was started on DS9. First Contract, they had those. And we see them again. We see a lot also of the 1701E. Like I said, we see the bridge. We see all over the ship. And it just made me think, especially after seeing, Picard season 3, hint, hint. But man, I just like the 1701D so much more than the E, especially the bridge. When they're in the bridge, I'm like, man, it's just not the same. The D has the wood paneling, the carpet. Like it just looks cozy.
Well, the Enterprise D is great. Yeah. But here's the thing too. This has been brought up.
Carpet.
Well, there is carpet in the next gen thing, but
it's not all like cold metal. It's got a nice welcoming vibe to it. Diplomacy again. It's not a battleship. It's an exploration vessel. The E just feels so much more kind of cold and like metallic, and I just don't like the bridge of the E.
There's a thing with Star Trek shows, especially new ones too. It's like, what would you want to live on for 3 years, right? Like one of the new, like super dark, bridges, or the Enterprise D where there's carpet and wood paneling and like plants sometimes.
Nice
like you would want to live on that ship.
Comfy
of any
chairs.
of them.
I would not be in quarters. I would be in the bunks, like in lower decks.
Okay,
I wouldn't be worried about it.
Yeah, you'd just be a little Ensign Colin.
But still, you'd rather live on a ship that has a little bit of. It feels homey, not like industrial, right? It's brutalist. We got these brutalist bridges. I don't like it. Go to
And I think
Klingon
you can
ship.
kind of explain that in your head by saying, well, it's a different era of the Federation. Had the Dominion War, which was hugely,
That's
a
true.
lot of casualties in that. They've had attacks from the Borg in First Contact, so they've been through a lot of shit at this point. And
Yeah.
so maybe that would lead them to make a more militaristic kind of ship designs and stuff because it's been messed up for the last couple of years. So like we need guns.
We did have the Defiant being built in this time period, so yeah, I like that, Jacob. That's a good way to rationalize it because Picard even says in this movie like, there's a lot of shit going on with the, Federation right now. It's pretty wild. So
yeah, Federation's basically getting their shit rocked by the Dominion. They've just recovered from that, and now there's this planet, Baku that they have to deal with,
which kind of feels low level for them. But then he's like, well, Data's over there. I got to see what's going on with Data. And then Picard kind of stays longer than he should because they're like, oh, okay, cool. You got your robot. You're going to leave now, right? And he's like, I need to investigate more. And they're like, hey, you're going to leave yet? And like slowly, like, get him out of here. And he unravels kind of what happened. We find out that Data discovered their holodeck.
They just like a probe. They just send Data out to do stuff sometimes.
Yeah, isn't he like
he goes on
a high-ranking officer? Why would he do that?
He's like an undercover agent, just as a scary robot that everybody could see is a robot.
Yeah.
So that's why he's invisible in the first scene, right? But the sort of the red herring mystery of it all is like, okay, Data's going rogue for some reason. They need to stop him because he's going to like kill somebody. And they even say like, all right, if you can't stop him, you're going to have to fucking put him down. And Picard's like, all right, if anyone has to do it, it'll be me because I'm his friend. Which is
an interesting Picard season 1 thing. Which, don't worry, none of that's consequential, but,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, they eventually catch Data by singing Gilbert and Sullivan.
This to me is like, do you think these two are doing this between takes on set of the old episodes? And we're like, we have to put in one of our famous songs that I do with Data in between.
Yeah. The lady that plays his love interest too. We met in a Broadway rehearsal for this play.
Yes.
But
I could see Brett Spiner being like, I used to do some theater too, Patrick, and them like really bonding with that on set. And I guarantee they used to do this bit together.
Totally. And Brent Spiner, he loves to ham it up whenever he gets the chance because he's played Data for so long as this very flat, robot with no emotions. Anytime he gets to like ham it up, he's going crazy.
I didn't think about that. That's
great.
If you just watch Independence Day if you want to see really over the top Brent Spiner.
Watch number 2.
Yeah. Wow.
And even in Picard, the new episodes of Picard, he gets to play all these relatives because all of Noonien Soong's ancestors looked like Brent Spiner for some reason. So he's played 4 or 5 different like relatives of this scientist that created Data,
brothers of all that. It's great.
Yeah, lore. And in season 3, he gets to like switch between his lore, Data personalities. B2, which is a character we'll meet in Nemesis. Really excited for that.
What happens to Lore in the finale of the show that he was never the villain in one of the movies? Because that seems so obvious to me to just, again, as an outsider, to be like, well, don't you guys have like a con? Well, why isn't Q the star of one of these movies?
Man, right? Was he just disassembled at some point? I don't remember the exact end of Lore.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember what happened to him. They brought him back a couple times in the show. In I think the last episode he's in, he's leading like a group of rogue Borg, and they're like following him.
I've seen
as
that
their
one.
new leader.
That one's really good.
Yeah,
I really like that one.
But I thought this was going to be Lore. Like when he's firing the phaser on the base and going rogue, I'm like, this isn't Data. Probably. Like I thought maybe that's where they're going with this. Could have been so long since I'd seen it, but that was not the case. Missed opportunity.
It's ultimately just a red herring to get the Enterprise to this planet. This planet is in a area called the Briar Patch, which has like
shitload of anomalies,
rays or whatever. Yeah.
Sensors don't work and stuff. It's typical Star Trek. It's really hard to transmit in here. It's so
yeah.
But then that's well, we discovered that that's how Data figured out what was going on because they're hanging around too long. We slowly figure out what the deal is. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about somebody real quick that we kind of have not brought up yet, and one big creative angle too. let's talk about the director. Let's talk about Jonathan Frankenbeans real quick and say, I think he's a little out of his element in this film, and I guess I can understand why he is not brought back to direct the next one.
No, well, I have some behind the scenes info about that you might find interesting. Because they were really happy with how First Contact came out, so they're like, we're going to bring you back. He felt like after a while that he didn't have enough creative control because Rick Berman was overseeing everything, so he had to follow what Rick Berman wanted to do, and he felt like, basically Rick Berman's philosophy was that a director should just get the story on screen in the most efficient way possible. And Jonathan Frakes wanted to be more creative about it, right?
I feel like the spaceship stuff, anytime we're on the Enterprise, he knows what's going on and he's just in his element. It's the exterior stuff on the planet that I feel like is that straightforward flat stuff, Jacob. And it's so surprising because First Contact has like some great sets and exteriors and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this planet is just, a very nice nature planet, but it's nothing
overly lit. People are literally just wearing the blandest whites and pales, Mike said. I
mean,
lots
of browns. It's literally any hiking trail in the Los Angeles area. Like it's that background that we see in all, like, it's probably where they shot Darmok, Tenabro, Tingrid's arm, whatever. Like, it's the same fucking place. It's the lowest budget spot you can pick, and
no interesting camera work.
No, it's very flat. Yeah,
it would have been fine for an episode of the show, but for a movie in 1998, it's like you want to see a little more of the budget on screen, I guess.
It's not cinematic, and that's why it felt so much like a long episode too. Not only because the plot is lower stakes and stuff, it's just like, it kind of looks more like a show outside of the stuff on the ship. Yeah, it, like when you're on the planet, it's like, this is just, moral issue of the week.
And also, the pacing of the story is just kind of weird, where it kind of takes forever to get going. Of like Picard figuring out what's going on, like he's investigating. Why did Data go rogue? What happened to him? Goes on the planet. The whole crew starts experiencing odd things of like, I feel so much better and younger. I have so much energy. Worf is going through Klingon puberty, which is pretty funny.
But Anfar is such a huge Star Trek thing of Vulcan puberty. To lean on this again just feels so lazy to me.
They didn't do enough with it. Yeah.
Well, they kind of foreshadow, like, the first scene where you see it, he, like, wakes up late, and Picard's like, I don't know how they do things on DS9, but, here on the Enterprise, we report to our duty on time. And Worf's just, like, wakes up, hits his head on, above him, and it's just, like, a mess. And then he gets a pimple. He's, like, having all the problems. Like, they make Michael Dorn do so much humiliating stuff in this movie.
Well, they make him, walk the plank in the previous one, too, man. They're always clowning Worf.
They make him sing Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh, they do make him sing Gilbert. I'm not a merry man. They do tease the stuff early, though. I did appreciate, because, like, Riker and Deanna are looking at a screen early on, and she's, like, rubbing his neck, and he's like, you haven't done that in a while. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, they're more affectionate now. It's like the planet's already having an effect before they explicitly state that. So they are kind of doing, like, what would be first act, 5-act Star Trek stuff.
And, good groundwork.
And that's
it started strong,
The biggest other thing about this movie is the Riker-Troy relationship is rekindled in this movie, because before this, they're not together. Like in most of the show, they're not together. They had like a previous, you might not even know this, Colin, but they had like a previous relationship, but they agreed to just be coworkers and friends for a long time. That's why she says, like, when he shaves his beard, or before he shaves his beard, he kisses her, and she's like, I'm not used to kissing you with a beard, even though he had a beard for like most of the run of the show. So you would think maybe if you didn't know TNG that well, that they'd just been together for a long time. And, but this is really where the planet's effects rekindled their romance, and they end up staying together even into this new Picard show.
Which does make it feel like the status quo. You're totally right. If you've only kind of seen the more recent stuff, it's like, they've always been together. But and then he gets to shave the beard.
What were they like in First Contact? I can't even remember.
They were just trying to make sure Cochrane wasn't drunk.
Yeah, they're kind of always flirty, but they were never together like they are explicitly. They get back together in this movie. They shave his beard. He shows up with no beard. It looks, weird. Everyone's like, please grow your beard back out. You look weird.
Yeah,
which
but
can
it
happen
fits.
sometimes.
He's feeling younger. I like that's definitely signifies young Riker to me because he's only in the first season. So it
Absolutely.
did feel like
I
he's
love
getting
John
his youth
Frakes.
back. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the biggest one for me is Geordi. You know, he gets his eyesight back, and he's like, I've never seen a
Yo.
sunrise or sunset. I'm like, that's good, Colin. What do you
And-
think?
It's again stuck with me since theater. It's so clear that they do this because they realize Levar Burton is one of the best looking guys on their cast. He is such a fucking hottie in this movie.
He looks
not
good in the
only
new
that,
Picard
he,
too. Little salt and pepper, dude. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
looking
that's
good.
great.
For
Yeah.
his age compared to the rest of the crew, yeah, he definitely is aged probably the best.
Yeah,
and not
gracefully.
just that, but also that he's a good actor when he can use his eyes to be expressive and stuff. So they're allowing him to do that more. I mean, he already had the implants instead of the visor.
Yeah. Can I say I just wish they wouldn't have done the implants and saved it for this. Because how cool if he
Yeah.
takes the visor off and it, like,
Yes.
dude, that'd have been
I mean, it's
awesome. But
Cyclops.
they want to have
It's
him
the
emote.
moment.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's very powerful. But to see him acting like Captain the Censors, it's like, oh, so that's what his eyes were doing the whole time in every episode of TNG. We just
Yeah.
never saw it. Yeah.
And even in Picard, he's using his eyes a bunch, and it's great.
He's very emotive, so it's
Um,
good for him to get that. But yeah.
And this speech about the sunset is really good too, because throughout the show he's kind of expressed like, oh, like one of his greatest wishes would be to actually see a sunset like that and experience it how other humans do. And so now he's finally getting that chance. So that's really great for him.
Wow.
Yeah, and everyone's feeling great. Picard's doing a little tango, right, when he puts on his music in his quarters.
Yeah.
That's definitely a Patrick Stewart note.
What if
there
has to be?
feels
A little
like
dance.
several in this film.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Got to do the tango.
Yes.
Of course, he finally gets his wish of having a love interest.
Not
more
since
so
Risa.
than- yeah. Like even Lily in First Contact, they didn't have really a romantic relationship. They were
No.
just kind of friends. Now
Mhm.
he gets a niche.
An older woman,
Yeah,
which he's always been attracted to.
That's right.
right.
So-
Yeah, he says that. And let me think, what happens next?
Again, the plotting is kind of weird, but they're just always saying, "Hey, when are you guys gonna leave?" They're learning more about this
Yeah.
culture, and like, oh, we
Getting
didn't.
a lot of check-ins with the admiral and the other people. The Sanan, what are they again?
The Sona.
So
Yeah,
Yeah,
They
they're
asked-
getting
they
their
asked-
faces stretched. Yeah.
right. And then they asked Data, "Hey, where were you when you went crazy?" And he's like, "Oh, I was following these kids." And the kids were like, "Oh, we were by the lake." And we go to the lake, and they were like, "Oh, there's a holodeck ship." And that's where we're like,
Invisible
"What
ship.
the hell is this?"
Right. So then Picard uncovers this whole plan to relocate the Baku. He goes back to the Admiral. He's like, what the fuck?
But it
Eventually,
really
yeah.
never gets over like the tone of a scold, though. Another weakness
Yeah.
I would put to this film is
Yeah.
like Patrick Stewart's chewing you out. It just feels like he's disappointed in you, and I'm like, this is like the bad guy of the movie for you.
And again, it doesn't have the stakes of like First Contact where
No,
it's like the whole world.
you're
is
doing a
gonna
mean
end.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't approve. Okay, well,
And again, he's willing to resign from
We have
Starfleet,
orders.
something that he would only do in like a very, very serious circumstances would he ever consider, going against his duty as a Starfleet officer, hanging up the pips, taking them off his collar. And he does that to defend these 600 people. It's just,
Yeah.
seems a little out of character for Picard, but I don't know.
The problem is, what the writers are trying to do. They're trying to endear us to this culture, right? And even like Geordi's like, I would give my eyes up to protect these people. Everyone's like, all these benefits, it's not worth it, and they're really heavy-handed with like, these people are being oppressed, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
yeah,
That's the thing.
So
If
that's
you
the
use this
issue.
ability for the entire galaxy, they will still be able to access this ability too.
Yeah, we'll
And
just
plus
ship it to
they've
you.
lived for hundreds of years. Why do these people get to live forever, but everyone has to suffer and have illnesses and death and mortality?
Right. Because if we can harness it and get it to other places, you can still have it too. So you just will relocate. You have a conversation. We'll give you subsidies. We'll give you so much fucking cool shit.
Yeah.
State of the art whatever you want. You don't like technology, but we'll give you whatever you want. Whatever planet, we'll find an M class for you. Let's make this happen, right? Like that's what we should have been doing.
And also Star Trek has also touched on this sort of thing before with the Maquis, where the Maquis were a terrorist group that was started by the Bajorans to fight against the Cardassians. There's an arc where they have this planet they're living on in the Cardassian neutral zone, right? And Cisco has to be like, no, you guys we're gonna have to relocate you because you can't be on this planet in the neutral
Dominion's
zone.
gonna fuck you up, dude.
Yeah. So they've literally done this sort of thing before, and Cisco was like, no, we gotta move. Like, he comes down on the other side of Picard of being like, we need to move these people.
Even if they don't want to, we're fucking doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're bringing up literally what I would give to the answer of the question that you had of, would you move the sacred tribe to get to the oil? What is the
right,
the righteousness or the right to do that? It's the life or death. Oil? No, it's a commodity. It's something we should be off of. It doesn't matter anything. If it's death, these people will die if we don't get them off the planet because the Dominion will come. Or if it's you have the cure of eternal life and no disease and something else, those are unfortunately the two where I would have to say you do have to move.
We're really getting to the needs of the many, right? So
right,
they're not profiting. We want this for the good of mankind, and I think putting the resource at this moral kind of imperative of like, this is for everybody. That's why it makes more sense. Like, yeah, you guys should probably share.
And that's why,
Patrick Stewart's best line is, but at what cost? The Admiral just needs to
How
say,
many?
At the cost of moving 600 people. I did not say we are killing these people.
Right.
Moving,
and he's like,
yeah.
Where's the line? Is it 10,000, 50,000, a million? It's like, those are all much bigger numbers than 600. You understand that,
you're
right?
saying as if I'm killing them again is what I would
because at the same time,
not.
we do have billions of people who have diseases and are dying. So 600 versus a billion, Picard, your math, you're not doing it, buddy.
Yeah, let me put it back to you.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, I think he's just horny, dude. He's really fell for this lady.
They had to choose a bad actor to be this admiral because if it was anyone with charisma, it would just come off as a guy who like dominates Patrick Stewart in this conversation. Like, no, none of this makes sense.
If they had Shaw from season 3 kind of in that role, an actor of that level, yeah, that'd be great.
And again, they have to really dial up the villainousness of Ruafu and the Sona of being like, okay, actually they have this whole other motive of like getting revenge against their own people, blah blah blah. But like the Federation are still right. Like it doesn't change that,
You still lock up Sona and be like, dog, not cool that you lied to us, but we need this and we're going to relocate them peaceably to a good planet for them, and it'll be fine.
When the Admiral finds out their motive, he's like, oh, I don't,
this is over
for any of that. And he's like, oh, well.
It gets smirched. Yeah.
And even Picard is like, I'll take this up the chain of command. And he's like, the chain of command already agrees with me.
We got it approved. Literally, like, I don't know what to tell you. There's a mountain of paperwork over that says I have to do this.
I filed a transfer for your android to help us. This is all above board. Yeah.
I called you when it turned out his factory warranty was up or whatever. I was like, something's wrong with your droid. I didn't have to do this, but I'm letting you know.
But yeah, you're right. As soon as he found out, he says, no, fuck this. We're not doing it. So
he's the hero of this movie.
He is. He's the hero we needed.
And for Picard to go rogue, I mean, that's definitely something that Kirk would do. And Kirk did break a bunch of laws and stuff to save Spock and all that stuff. But again, Picard is the kind of guy who his honor and his duty, he wouldn't just quit Starfleet over this. I don't think so.
I don't think
weird
so
motivations. And I think that's kind of the biggest flaw with the movie is that it just doesn't make sense to me. Like his motivations and the whole plot just doesn't make sense if you don't agree with the Baku people.
Yeah, the Admiral should say like, are you fucking one of them? Like, that's none of your business.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that's against the Prime Directive. Kirk would not give a shit, but anyway.
Yeah, that's literally, we have it in our code. It's called the Kirk Directive. You're not allowed to have sex with one of them and make these decisions.
Yeah.
Especially not on first contact.
Actually, there's a famous episode of the original series where Kirk and Spock go back in time and they meet this lady that they later find out is like the reason why they like avert World War II or something, but she has to die in the future, and Kirk has to debate whether he wants to save her because he's into her or you just let her die for the greater good of history. So Yeah.
I also get vibes of Pen Pals, if you remember that episode of the TNG. It's the one where there's a pre-warp planet, so prime directives in effect that they're monitoring, and they're having all these anomalous like volcanoes and earthquakes and shit. It looks like their whole planet's going to get wrecked. And Data receives a transmission from a little girl on the planet, and he starts responding. And Picard lays into him, like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's literally debating letting the entire planet blow up because that's a prime directive. A whole planet. That's more than 600 people. And he still has a hard time with what he does. In this, it's like 600. Fuck it. Give me a gun.
Of course.
You know? Yeah. So it's very different.
Usually not the one to break the prime directive. Like Cisco
he yells
would,
at Wesley,
Janeway
too.
would. Yeah.
But you
he's
guys
the only
are
one that
underestimating
won't.
the power of taking Viagra. Like a planet that is shooting Viagra into your body.
He's
Right.
feeling great. He's feeling younger than ever.
Literally, he's like, no, you're not taking that planet from me.
He's at full like bullhorn, like headbutting mating mode. Like you'll not take her from me. And he goes after the admiral.
How dare you?
Incredible. Yeah, this is a wild one. I tell you what. But they want you to sympathize. I don't think they execute it, unfortunately, because this is.
Yeah.
There's just really not a lot to it.
Then the villain has to start. We're gonna shoot everybody. Fucking the villains launch their ships and like start shooting the villagers. And now we have to force our hand. Yeah, and it's like, come on.
It's the Killmonger. Like Killmonger had some good points, but he also just like killed people in cold blood. And so that's how you know he's bad. Or like the, the Mariner. What's his fucking name in Wakanda Forever?
Namor. Yeah,
Namor.
Little Namor.
But then when we got Ruafo, it's like, why do you want revenge? Like, you guys chose to dip. So you chose to do that. Like, why are you upset?
Well, they tried to do a coup in the colony and like control the colony, and then they got banished, I think.
Oh, okay, okay. Well,
so they had to leave. But also, again, their whole thing was that they wanted to use like technology and stuff, and the people were like, no, we're like the space Amish people. We don't want to use technology. Right. And they're like, that's fucked up. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, but that's also kind of their choice. Like they chose to try to do a coup and use technology. Like all that is you have to own that.
To stay on a planet that they shouldn't be on. Nobody is the hero at this
Nobody's a good guy here except the Admiral. Rest in peace, man. He was just duped, and when he found out, he wanted to do the right thing, and he got duped.
He wasn't duped. He was assigned to do this.
That's true. But the Riafa was lying to the Federation of their true motives. Everybody was duped,
And again, for the Federation not to be like, well, let's talk to the Baku and like figure this out before we resort to spying on them and tricking them and relocating without even their knowledge. Just seems like a very un-Starfleet thing to do. So Picard resigns, takes his pips off, puts on his cool 90s leather jacket.
No sleeves. Soon we'll have.
I just want to point out, this is 1998. I did a whole episode on the year 1998 because I loved every film I saw in theaters and I remembered them all. I did not include this film on that list when I did that.
This is a TV show.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
But in First Contact, you had the cowboy look with the vest. This one, that leather jacket, man, looking cool, looking suave.
Let me tell you another note from Patrick.
Indeed.
But he goes down. He's grabbing all of his guns and stuff. He's like, "Hell yeah, it's time to do some violence."
Like
Classic Picard. Yeah. Didn't Data say that? Lock and load.
Yeah, Data said that. So that's the thing. So he goes to the captain's yacht, and he's going to take the captain's yacht, and not to involve the rest of the crew, down to the planet. And then the door opens up, and they're like, "You thought you could do this alone? We're here too. The whole crew. We're ready to resign from Starfleet, put on our civilian clothes."
Which really is a Kirk thing. That would happen with Bones, like they'd be like, "Well, we're with you, Jim." Not these guys.
No. And again,
it would be a lot of administrative, bureaucratic work to figure it out in the background. That is what TNG would do.
Especially if they're not prime directive. Like they're out of that, so we could just talk to them straight up.
Yeah. No, I think this movie is the most libertarian Star Trek movie because they're like, we're going to defend these super isolationist white people against the government who wants to relocate them.
Start trying to enforce your rules on us free people.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's like Waco or something, It's literally like Waco. So
with the Fountain of Youth. What a weird movie. It is something that I could see watching again. Like, just you throw it on in the background. Like, I don't know. It's like I watched it and I fell asleep. Right when the finale was coming up, and I had to rewatch the finale. I'm like, this is relaxing. Like, it's not good, but it's relaxing.
Again, I think the pacing is a little off. It takes forever to get going into what's the actual main plot of the movie, and then the plot is so simple of just like, we need to defend these colonists. Sona attack. The third act is just like them protecting the colonists, and then being like, hey, Admiral, did you know that they were lying and stuff? And then Ruafu goes rogue at the end and wants to just do it anyway, and then Picard stops him, and then the movie's over.
Yeah, and they trick him by putting him in the hollow ship, and it's like, oh, we thought we were doing and there's like a little bit of that going on.
They set it up.
That's a good fake out.
Look, my issue with what you just said, Mike, about throwing this on, and it's what we all keep saying about this, is if I was at your house and say we were like hanging out, had a few beers, maybe smoke something or whatever, and you were like, I'm going to put a couple Star Trek episodes on. And you put on a good TNG episode that I was kind of half paying attention to, and then at some point this movie was on, I would turn to you and be like, you know what? I have seen this one. I do know this episode. And then when it went to another one, I wouldn't notice. And you would later say, what if I told you that was a movie that I had on? I would not believe you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it literally does feel like an episode, an extra long episode.
There's just no other way to put it. It's so bare minimum.
It's a bare minimum moral conundrum episode, but they don't fully flesh out the moral conundrum enough for us to know the righteous path. Like it's so muddled in the way it's executed that it doesn't even succeed as a moral conundrum episode. So
yeah, and this movie came out in theaters. Like, if I went to a theater and saw this movie, I would be angry that I spent money watching it, and like, this came out. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna ask my dad what his take was, because again, he loved Captain Kirk. I truly don't think he ever, like, I already told you guys he didn't watch TNG, but I don't believe that, like, when we were leaving, he was ever like, Star Trek's back. That was, man, can you guys believe the Next Generation? I think that, like, each one he was like, yeah, that's right, they did say transporter.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, that was Star Trek. That's right.
Yeah, these never really feel like the show Picard's to me, and this is probably the worst one, the worst offender so far, I'd say.
Do you like Generations more than this, Mike?
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah, yes, because of the scene with Picard.
That's the only one that I'm fluctuating on, and we'll see.
I think
next,
they're both.
episode.
I think they're both kind of equally not good to me. Like, they both feel like extra long episodes of the show. At least Generations has like the Kirk and Picard scenes, which are interesting.
Guinan.
Yeah, but
the third act of it is not good, and the third act of this is not really that good either. So,
and this is worse than V'ger. Like, V'ger looks great, it's a spectacle, but I'd rather watch V'ger than this. Easily.
I would definitely watch number one over this one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I would too.
Unfortunately,
again, that's just like madness. Like, there's no madness to this. I'm never once surprised or like, anything just
it's
unexpected.
a very standard episode plot of like going to this planet, figuring out what their deal is, solving the dilemma, and then it's over.
Yeah, definitely my least favorite of the TNGs so far. We'll see Nemesis, but man, if Nemesis I like less than this, I might be shocked. I know.
I'm ready for some hot takes.
Store.
Yeah, because I actually think I'm a bit of a Nemesis defender. I think it might be the second
Tom
best
Hardy's in
TNG movie.
Great.
Yeah. Which is it's not a high bar, I don't think, right?
No. Like, I would rather watch Soren again, and all that shit than this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
climbing through scaffolding. So I think that's it. Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't love it.
No.
And we're the experts.
Recommend.
Yeah.
Watch Picard season 3 instead.
Yeah. I'm sorry that Geordi couldn't keep his perfect eyes, but anyway. Picard season 3 instead. Yeah.
It's temporary.
So
but that's the movie, and
is it time?
Maybe it's time for a little Wrath of Cobb.
Ooh.
From Hell's Heart, I spit at thee.
Hey.
Pop quiz today. Yeah. Right after this.
We're back here on Normies Like Us, where we've been talking Star Trek, specifically Star Trek Insurrection. We're back with another of Jacob's Cobb quizzes. The Wrath of Cobb, or is it a Cobb Insurrection.
Ah,
Wow.
nice.
Wow. That's right. Before I start
love
the
that.
quiz, I just want to say I mentioned that, Jonathan Frakes, he did not return to direct for Nemesis, and he actually was so disillusioned by the making of this movie that he didn't end up directing for Star Trek for like 20 years until
my God.
Discovery came out and he directed an episode of that. But
Huh.
so this killed his desire to ever do Star Trek.
It really
again.
burned a bridge. That kind of
Yeah.
Wow.
There's two eras. We have Riker's beard. He comes into his own as the actor, second season of TNG, and then they make him shave it off in this movie, and he's just like, you know what? I'm out for
And
20
he gets
years.
immediately
That's right.
cucked again, Mike. He
Dude.
loses his Samson-esque power.
Then he had to grow it back before he could get Believe It or Not. That's false. It's like, you got to keep your beard, man.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. We made that one up. Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway.
Um,
sorry,
and-
John.
Yeah, and just what he said about working on this reminded me a lot of what certain directors will say about MCU of not having enough creative.
Sure.
And it's not for everybody. Ryan, not Ryan Johnson, but who am I thinking of that was going to do Ant-Man? and
Edgar
left
Wright.
Ant-Man.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah, Alan
My-
Taylor
my
directed
precious.
Thor 2 as well.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys that come out.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what it is. But let's jump in to the quiz. The Cobb.
do it.
The Wrath of Cobb.
If you're
Heck
watching
yeah.
at home, you know how we do it. Mike and I are going to have our hands up and do some signals. Otherwise, we're going to do some true and false. I assume that is the format again.
Yes.
That's right. So I'm trying to trick you guys. You guys are trying to guess true or false. We'll see who wins.
It gets trickier the more we learn about the creatives and whether they were good or bad to work with. There's some curveballs
Yeah.
in here, so I'm ready. Let's do our best.
That's true.
All right. First question. This is the first Star Trek film in which all of the space shots are CG. No models used. True or false?
Okay.
I like how the ship with all the coils in the back looks. That to me does not seem like a model. I'm talking this out here, but I think I'm locked in, Mike.
I'm locked in. I'm not confident, but yeah.
Lock
fell
it in.
asleep for a
Think
bit.
about think about all the space exteriors. How did they look?
Also, again,
All right.
there's not a lot of space exteriors.
No.
No, not too much. Get
All
some
right,
of the
well,
briar patch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll risk it. Here we go.
All right. 3,
gotta
2,
do-
1. Reveal.
I said
True.
false. All right, so we're on opposite ends.
That is true. That is true.
Okay, Colin with a point.
So keep in mind, when this was made, so this was, DS9 was ending its run. It came, season 7 came out the same year as this movie, which is the last season of DS9, in the second or third season of Voyager. And Voyager was the first show in which they went to all CG.
That's right.
So this is the time period. They're like, models are too expensive. We're going to CG.
You know what though, Jacob? Didn't look bad.
Didn't look bad. Again, I just don't love the 1701E, the exterior look or inside the bridge. I just prefer the D, prefer the D.
Yep. So there's a niche on that planet. Bald guys too.
Is there a character in Star Trek who makes a bunch of models of the various enterprises?
Picard collects them.
Well, there was that that
Picard
wall
does?
of models
He
in
has-
his contract.
Oh,
yeah,
Little
he
shit.
smashes them.
Oh,
You
that
broke
was
your
his room,
toys.
I guess. That was his quarters. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's funny. I'm gonna get you a bunch.
He likes
of
to
those
look at his
models, Jake. I know you have
Stargazer.
a few of them, but to actually make them, I think that's the sign of an engineer. Or
That's got to be Scotty's thing that when he's
Yeah.
retired. But you know what?
O'Brien, I could see O'Brien doing that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I should have thought about the exterior shots of them in California desert planet and realized that for budgetary reasons there was no way they did anything practical. I should have realized. So
No.
anyway, good job, Colin.
Yeah. And even a lot of the interiors, I can say, were Voyager sets that were redressed. So a lot of the 1701E, like Picard's quarters was just Janeway's quarters and Voyager and different things like that. So
Oh.
they were
That's
reusing a lot of
sad.
sets.
But
It's
they
like, how
made that.
big was the budget on this movie? Because they're cutting a lot of corners, right?
They
Seems
spent it
like-
all on joystick pedestal. They have a special joystick pedestal.
Yeah.
That costs
That
a lot
actually-
of money.
That's not a question on here, but I did read a trivia that's like this joystick model was like this certain model that was an actual gaming joystick in the 90s.
cool.
There are, after playing Star Wars Squadrons, before we get back to the quiz, there are people who all they do is they list what model joystick is used for the spaceships in every show. And like I'm
That's
starting to be able to identify. I'm like, oh,
Brilliant.
that's a cosmonaut. Oh, that's a whatever. Like,
course.
so there are people who are that nerdy that are like, I know that's a Logitech
Sure.
VX42 or whatever. It's like, okay. So I would like that piece of trivia. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So next question.
All right.
A kiss scene between Picard and Inaj was shot, but it was cut out of the film. True or false?
Is there not a kiss scene in the movie?
There's
I
I
didn't see
think
one.
he kisses on her forehead at one point, but there's not
Oh.
mouth to mouth kind of kiss.
Oh, I hate that.
I think I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
It's got to be
Come
true,
on.
right? Okay.
That is true. That is
okay.
true.
1 point each.
Patrick's 10th demand, and I kissed the
And
girl.
yeah, he was very disappointed by it being cut. Actually, but
Yeah.
apparently the reason it was cut was during that scene when they show that she can like slow down time or whatever, and things like slow motion, which they don't really
Mhm.
explain. They're just like, he's just like, how did
Yeah.
you do that?
No more questions, she says.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So there was a kiss. There was supposed to be a kiss in that scene, but I guess they cut it because it just looked weird because they shot it in that super slow mo, and then they just said it just
Why
didn't
did
work in
you
the final
do-
cut.
You can speed the footage up.
Yeah.
That is the silliest excuse. That is an excuse that they told Patrick Stewart that he now tells. That is not the
Right.
reason it's not included.
Like, Will, you
I
gotta
just don't know
break it to
why.
Patrick.
Jonathan
so
only
against,
shot it in
uh,
slow mo.
They're so
Bummer.
against giving Picard any kind of love interest for some reason.
He
Even
just
into Picard
seems
where he's
very
like-
sexless to me. I don't know. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he had that archaeologist lady that was like his main fling in the show.
Mhm.
I can't remember her name either, but
Yeah, but the lady on Risa, she's like steals some artifacts. You know, she's a little
like
rascal.
she's like a con woman archaeologist. And then now in the Picard show, he finally gets his way because they're like, oh, this your Romulan maid that's like 40 years younger than you. She's gonna be into you now in season 2. But then they just wrote her out in the first episode of season 3, and which is very funny.
And now they're doing new romantic stuff with him anyway. It's like, all right, Picard, you'll finally get it.
And of course, him and Crusher had an on again, off again thing for a long time. Dr. Crusher. But yeah, I don't know. They're just resistant to like show him be sexual at all in the show.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a reaction to the Kirk. Like we need to have the opposite kind of guy. But yeah, in the movies, he's pushing for it. They still don't let him have it. So weird.
Yeah.
Sorry,
question.
Patrick. Yeah.
F. Murray Abraham. Nothing controversial in the news with him.
Fuck
going
Mary Abraham. Is that the game we're playing?
That's right.
Fuck Mary
Yeah.
Abraham.
What does the F stand for?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Frank.
That's the quiz.
Yeah, Jonathan
Apparently,
Frakes.
he's more like his
Remember-
character in White Lotus season 2 than we thought. But
Mm.
F. Murray Abraham was not F. Murray Abraham was the first choice to play Ruafu. Is that true or false?
I'm
locked
ready.
in.
Yep.
All right.
Oh,
3, 2,
Oh, yeah, we're
1.
good. I saw it. I was on the same thing. It was.
Reveal,
We
you're both
went
saying
false.
False.
Yes.
That
Can't-
was
cannot
false. That
be. Yeah.
I was trying to trick
Yeah.
you guys, but that is false. So apparently, this is one of the facts I read. Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the people they offered this role to, and he turned it down.
Same part,
Arnold
not as
Schwarzenegger.
the Admiral, as that character.
The Ruafu, the loose-skinned
Mm.
weirdo.
Right.
Mm.
They
And this
gotta-
is, the height of Arnold's popularity
Yeah.
in the 90s. Like he's doing major action movies and
Literally
stuff.
1997 is Batman and Robin. So it's
Yeah.
like he is getting
Ah.
top billing as the villain of a film over the heroes. Is that what we would have wanted in this film? No.
I can only assume it would have been like way good to have him doing his Austrian accent. Yeah, it would have been weird. I don't know about
Yeah, and I was just imagining those prosthetics with him. I mean, we've had big name actors as villains before, but Christopher Plummer and stuff. But I can't see it. I cannot see
No,
it.
not this part.
And
Or
F.
hear
Murray
it.
Abrams is coming off his in the 80s. He was an Amadeus, which he was. I can't remember if he won an Oscar or was just nominated for
Nominated.
Amadeus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of maybe his best known role, just in terms of movies. But anyways, next question.
And we'll
So
get
you guys
AI
are-
to we'll put Arnold back in with deep fakes now. We'll just do the AI
Yeah.
version of that. It's one. Colin has 3. I have 2. So Colin's still up
You guys
by
are doing
1.
pretty well so far. I gotta try to throw some curveballs at you, maybe. Let's see.
Richard
Mhm.
E. Grant would have made
Hmm.
a great villain in this film, but you
Sure.
need somebody thin and slimy. Going for a big muscle head for that part, that makes no sense.
No.
Yeah.
No. The opposite
again,
of
this,
virility is what it should represent being off that planet, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. All right. Next question. Sally Field was the first choice to play Anish. Sally Field. Is that true or false?
Okay, locked in.
I'm locked in. Yeah. All right.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
I went true.
True seems
Okay.
much
True.
more believable.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
80 for Brady.
And just a couple more fun facts about casting that I'm not going to include for the quiz.
Mm-hmm.
For the Admiral, they wanted Wilford Brimley or Gene Hackman. And Patrick
Ah.
Stewart requested that it be his very old friend, Brian Blessed,
Oh, okay.
who I guess they
They-
just go way back.
Ronnie Cox plays an admiral on a really good TNG episode. I would have loved if this was Ronnie Cox, and especially to give him the death scene. And he had the history with Patrick Stewart. I don't know. I just think that would have been more interesting.
But it was
Oh, yeah, I
Anthony
know.
Zerbe.
That's Jellicoe. Great Admiral. Yeah.
Oh,
That'd been awesome to bring back Jellicoe.
yeah.
Because he was right kind of too.
Yeah.
You know?
He takes over the ship when Picard is being tortured and stuff by the Cardassians on the secret mission.
Yeah,
That's a
my
great
favorite
episode,
episode.
of course.
Yeah, Riker doesn't like it. Yeah, that'd have been great to bring back Jellicoe in this.
And then you're
film
like, you're
series.
not doing enough. And he's like, I am. I've been doing this in the background the whole time. I'm your
Right.
commanding officer. You need to respect that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's the Last Jedi Poe lesson, right? Where he's like, no, unless you're constantly saying you're doing the right thing, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's like-
Jellicoe's a little like Shaw from Picard too.
And they could have had the inverse. It's like the inverse Khan. We have a antagonistic-ish, but he's still on. But we have a presence from the TV show that we're going to give a big role to in the film series. I mean,
Yeah, it's
that'd be
weird.
really
Yeah, they
cool.
could have reused an admiral. Maybe the lady from the Drumhead, possibly.
Yeah, it would just make sense.
Someone like that. Yeah. By the way, in Picard season 3, they do bring back Lieutenant Shelby from the Best of Both Worlds as Admiral Shelby.
That's
briefly,
right.
You see her. So that's fun.
funny.
Yeah. All right. 4 to
So that's
3.
some casting fun facts. Here's another
Mhm.
question. Brent Spiner wanted Data to be killed in this movie. Is that true
Oh.
or false?
I'm so ready.
All right,
R-
3,
yep.
2, 1, reveal.
True.
True.
We're going true.
That is true. That is
Yeah.
true.
Kill me.
He wanted Data to be killed. He thought he was getting too old to play Data, a never aging robot. But of course, Brent Spiner is aging, and he's like, I don't think I can play Data anymore. I'm too old.
Jacob, you've been doing Frasier as a second screen, or you were for a little bit. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
I went through all of Frasier.
Is there a Brett Spiner episode where he plays a famous TV robot and they're like obsessed with it, and he's like, and I don't want to play this or be known by this anymore?
He is a guest star on an episode, I think, but I don't think that's his part.
I
There's
feel like
also-
he had that story in a different sitcom that was very referential to him just no longer wanting to be known as Data.
Could be.
Wild.
There's another episode of Frasier that Patrick Stewart is a guest star on, and he plays a gay guy who
That one's really good. I do remember that
Yeah.
one.
he
Who's
plays a
into
gay guy who
Frasier.
thinks Frasier. Well, he thinks Frasier is gay and is into him, so he starts like it's a misunderstanding.
Does
you
he have
know?
a beard too?
He might.
I think I remember him looking really good, Patrick Stewart, in that episode. Being
Oh,
like,
sure.
God damn.
I never watched
Yeah.
That's
Frasier.
maybe
Just
the character
Cheers.
he's always wanted to play. He's very sexual in that episode.
Right.
Frasier is a
Let him
great
shoot a
show.
gun.
Love
Nice.
Niles. Niles is one of my
the
favorite
greatest character
TV
of all time.
characters.
Yeah, easily.
And that's coming
Um,
back too.
I don't even think Niles is going to be in it, though, is he? I don't
No,
think
just
anybody's
Kelsey
coming
Grammer.
back except Kelsey
Uh,
Grammer.
And he's living in Boston again or something, not Seattle.
And he's like a billionaire.
Yeah, it
Cool.
seems like Kelsey Grammer's been trying to get this off a long time. There's like, fine, you can have your Frasier reboot.
Kelsey Grammer would have been an awesome villain in this film.
Oh, Kelsey Grammer is in an episode of Next Generation.
Oh, you guys have told me that because
Uh-huh.
I
He
have
plays
seen
a-
he has
yeah.
a beard, right?
He
and
plays
some
a Star
hair
Trek
and stuff.
captain. or
Yeah.
Starfleet captain. Yeah.
Because did you tell me he loves Star Trek? That he's
Yeah, he was a
huge
big Star Trek fan. Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
Patrick Stewart was in Frasier. Yeah, it was a nice little crossover.
Heck yeah.
all
Heck
right.
yeah.
Next question. Oh, and Brent Spiner. So they originally had in the script that he was going to be killed, and the higher ups were like, "No, don't kill Data." And then they gave him his copy of the
Well?
script, and it had a note and just said, "Sorry, kill you later." So
Dang.
Well,
See,
kind of
I
a Harrison
thought
Ford situation. Yeah.
it feels like they could have killed him in the last movie too. Like just straight up sacrifice to save Picard,
Yeah.
from green gas.
Stay
and
tuned
Borg lady.
Well?
for next month.
Yeah.
All right, next question. You guys are doing really well. I got to stump you guys.
Yeah. I took a risk on the first one and I regret it.
that's what you get, Mike.
Yeah, I gotta
So
try to
Patrick
separate.
Stewart has said in an interview that he did agree with Picard's choices in this movie. Is that true or false?
Oh,
So
this is it. This is the game right here. What do we think Patrick
this
Stewart
is.
thinks?
Boy, and I've spent pretty much this whole episode trying to get into his head, and I
Yeah.
still feel at a loss here.
Yeah.
So I don't
Oh
go either
man, it's terrible. Oh no.
he never. Let me say this: he never makes the right choice. So
Right.
Seems like it,
that's
right?
what is guiding me here.
I got an answer. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Ready to reveal?
Correct.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
I went with true as well.
That
He
is
had to have
false.
advocated. Wow.
Thank God. I'm
Thank
happy to
goodness.
hear we're
I didn't
wrong.
want that to be correct.
He
Yeah.
actually, I was trying to throw you guys off, but he
You did.
said he disagreed with what Picard did, and he would have actually made them give up the planet.
Good.
Yeah, so he agrees
Well,
with us.
Thank you.
You chose correctly.
It's Luke
And actually, I
Skywalker.
guess, when they gave him the script, he was a little concerned because he's like, "This doesn't make sense. I don't
This
like
is
the plot of
bad."
this movie."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Follow those instincts, Patrick.
Yeah, bro.
So yeah, that's that.
Dang. Okay. Well, thank God. Yeah, he didn't want to do that. Jake Picard, like Jake Skywalker, that Mark Hamill was saying. Like, I don't know if Luke would do that. Maybe it's Jake, but yeah, not
Right.
Picard-like behavior. So I just went
All
with
right,
true
next
because he
question.
thought he was advocating for something. Thankfully, it wasn't the script. It was just for Mambo.
Yeah. Turns
Yeah.
out.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
great,
love interest.
great quiz, Jacob.
You got more?
Thank you. I do have a couple more questions.
Colin
I
wants to
thought
wrap
we
it up because he's in the lead. He wants to get out of here with a
I
win.
truly thought that was the last one.
No, almost 3 more questions.
All right. All right.
Or 4 more. Okay. So this movie is the only time that the captain's yacht is seen on screen in the show or movies. Is that true or false? The captain's yacht, which is what Picard takes when he resigns from Starfleet. He's going to the Baku planet in the captain's yacht when the
Not
crew
a
meets him.
shuttle, not an escape pod.
Right.
The captain's yacht.
Okay. I think I'm locked in.
All right, ready?
Mhm.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
False.
That is true.
Wow. We
It's the
got
only
stumped.
time it's seen on screen. It's mentioned in like one episode of the show,
Mhm.
but before this, it's never seen. So they're just like, let's show the captain's yacht in this movie.
See, I would have thought if
This
they're going to
thing that
make
we
a
mentioned once.
yeah, I figured if they made a 3D model, they would reuse it budget
Yeah.
at some point, but I
Right.
guess not because this is
With
late in the
this
run of the
film, I
series.
figured everything was recycled. So
Yeah.
It's
All
all
right.
CG, and then there's the ship that Data is piloting in the beginning, which I don't even know what that ship is called or like what it's
Cool.
supposed to be. It's kind of like a Defiant looking ship.
yeah,
Didn't the admiral say that's his ship that they like?
Yeah, but it's
All right.
like a little bigger than a shuttle, but it's like it also has like, does it have a cloaking device on it too? I can't remember.
I don't think it had cloaking, but it had some weird shield action. But
a
anyway,
lot of stuff is invisible in this movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Which is technology that only
Including
the
the logic.
Romulans and the Klingons are supposed to have, but for some reason they can just turn Data invisible at the beginning. But anyways,
yeah.
all right, next question. Let's keep it moving. So this movie came out after season 6 of DS9, on which there was some events that happened to Worf. This is all context for this question, but Worf ends up getting married to Jadzia Dax, the science officer, a Trill, which is that species that Colin hates.
Yeah.
And then in the climax of season 6, she's killed by what's his name? Gul Dukat, who's, become like this prophet of the paw rays or whatever. It's a whole thing. But they wrote off Terry Farrell, and this again comes from the Rick Berman doesn't get along with any female cast member of any Star Trek.
Get along.
Right.
Terry Farrell.
They don't like when I harass them.
Jesus, right?
Yeah. So Terry Farrell felt like she was, mistreated on set, didn't want to do anymore, asked to be written off, and very pettily, Rick Berman killed her permanently so that she could never come back or anything. And it's a very controversial decision to this day to have her killed off in the season 6 finale. Anyways, the point of that is that Worf married Jadzia Dax and then lost his wife. This happened like right before this movie came out because it, came out between season 6 and season 7, right? So keep that in mind.
Okay.
So originally there was a scene in this movie where they acknowledged what happened in DS9, but they cut it. Is that true or false?
He's a guest, but I'm here.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
I said true. All right, same page.
That is true.
Yeah.
They had a scene where Picard, says, "Oh, my condolences that your wife died," and all that stuff. And Rick Berman himself overruled Michael Piller, who wanted to include it, and said, "No, cut that." So again, pretty sketchy, right?
Pretty petty.
Wow. Pretty
Yeah.
pet. Wow. Yeah, we just want to
Yeah.
make fun of Worf. We don't want to acknowledge his
Yeah,
trauma.
Man
I
just
believe
lost
that it
his
was
wife.
in there because like Michael Dorn would have done something great with something meaty like that, and he really doesn't get anything else like that in these movies.
Well,
Instead, he just gets
imagine-
to go through puberty and be comic relief.
Right, like even with half a second to think about it, it's like he shows up like, Picard, this shit went down. I'm feeling bad. And then he gets to a planet where everybody lives forever, and he's like, why couldn't I have eternal life with my loved one? And he's like reflecting on the brevity of existence, right? Like you could do more with it, but anyway, that would take competence.
And of course, as a Trill, she comes back as in a different host body in season 7.
Everybody loves that.
Not anyone's favorite character. No offense to the actress that played her.
No,
because
no.
She's a good actress, but it just felt very tacked on for the last season of DS9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
not her fault.
7, it got 7 seasons.
Yeah.
So we have one
So in the
season
very
with
last
Ezri.
season, you have Ezri Dax, this new character,
Ezra.
who ends up, I think, in a relationship with Dr. Bashir,
Ugh.
who always had a crush on Jadzia Dax. But anyways,
Which is kind of I'm dating your sister, sort of. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Bashir's weird, though. I don't
Dating
know.
you.
Well, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk about Bashir one day. Anywho.
all right. So next question. Rick Berman wanted to include a Lieutenant Barclay cameo. Is that true or false?
Are we gonna give Rick Berman, after all this stuff we just said about him, something good, a positive, like a Barclay cameo?
Right. I'm ready.
Maybe not.
I'm locked
Ready?
in.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
False?
I said true?
That is false. That is false. He's
2
trying to
point
throw you guys
lead.
off again.
He's just
Threw me
baiting
off.
you, Mike. He's saying Barclay just to trick
He knows
I know
what
you
I
like Barclay.
want. I love Barkley. Yeah.
Actually, Michael Piller wanted to include a scene with Barclay.
that's
But that was a
good
note that he
twist.
got from the studio to cut that and replace it with a larger role for Crusher or Worf and give them more screen time instead. So,
Huh.
Well, that would have been nice. So he didn't take that advice?
Yeah.
they get a little more, I guess. But
Yeah, maybe.
yeah. Okay. Last
Crusher
question.
shoots a
Let's
gun.
wrap up the Wrath of Cobb.
All right.
What's the score? So Colin's ahead by 2.
He's up by 2. It's 7-5. Looks
This
like.
one's worth 5.
Yeah. All right.
We can make this one worth 3 or whatever.
10 million. It doesn't really. It's arbitrary
yeah.
at that point.
Okay. Last question. Armin Shimmerman shot a cameo as Quark in this movie. True or false?
Boy. There's nothing I would have liked more.
I
So,
think I'm ready.
Okay. Locked in.
Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
True?
False.
That is true.
Oh my God, Colin with the win. 10 million and
Release the
7
footage.
points.
But they cut it. I guess he was going to be in at the very end. He was going to be landing on the Baku planet, talking about like setting up a timeshare company or something. And then there's going to be a scene with him and Picard and then Worf was going to take him back to DS9. Like,
Sheesh.
could have been
Come
fun.
with me.
Yeah.
Could have been fun as a
fun.
post cred. Yeah, that's a good stinger if we were in that era.
Mike,
Yeah, if post creds were
if that was
thing
the
back
last
then,
scene of the movie,
yeah.
this movie would have been brought to life for the last scene of the movie. You could put that
true.
in. You could put that in as the first scene, and I would have liked it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it anywhere.
Apparently,
They got these-
so Max Grodenchek, who plays Rom, his brother,
Mhm.
is in this movie as an extra, like a Starfleet Trill officer.
Mhm.
So he's just like in a little cameo, like he's not even playing the same character, but he's just in a cameo.
Wow.
Yeah,
There you
they
go.
throw that cameo bone to a lot of Star Trek actors. Well, great
Yeah.
quiz, Jacob. I'm defeated, Colin.
Congratulations,
it.
Colin, once again. I feel like, what's the overall record on these quizzes now? out of 9 or 10?
a great question.
We'll have to get the final once we get
that's
to
a good
Nemesis.
tally.
We have the sheets. Yeah, we'll get a tally. But yeah, I
Listen
was
to the last 10 minutes of every episode.
well. I keep track generally in the
good.
notes. But I was scared to ignite the exhaust, but you weren't. So congratulations.
There's just, like Jacob said off pod, probably were not that many interesting facts about a film that frankly
No.
wasn't very interesting. Here's my
Right.
final take. It
Yeah, it
had
seems
Yeah.
good.
I think I've
a
had
cool
better
message.
quizzes. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Look, I said it before about the writing. Like, there was an attempt of something here, right? But, I don't know. I just don't think this brain trust was the right way to go. It's interesting that they got so insular with these new movies that I guess because of the success of the TV shows, after the failure of the first show, that they felt confident to go, no, we do understand what this is now. But boy, it needs fresh blood.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And we're kind of getting into final thoughts here as we wrap up, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah,
the
let's
big
do it.
problem with the film is that I think I've said this before, is that I want when one of these movies comes out, I want it to have like movie stakes, a reason to exist outside of the show, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, this felt like they're going back to these same people that wrote all these great episodes, but they're coming at it from a TV writer perspective almost.
Yeah.
They need someone with a more film background or mindset to take these over, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of realize that too with Nemesis, and we'll talk about that next month.
Yeah, and you look at the original series movies, and like by going to non-Trek people, you get a Wrath of Khan. You know what I mean?
Right.
You turn Kirk into Shakespeare. Like you elevate it, right? The themes and everything of the show and this kind of whole deal. And TNG just hasn't gotten that yet. It's gotten better than average TV plots. Like First Contact is better than average TV plot, and that's the best I think we've had so far. And this is below average TV plot and below average budget too.
Like, Mike, if they were to weave fiction into this film, all of what you were just referencing, like Melville, Moby Dick being equated to the weight of this, it's like, this is Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. It would be like Patrick Stewart was like in the background going like, and of course the Lorax said, no, don't take my trees.
Yeah, this is the worst version of
what?
Avatar.
Yeah, obviously Avatar did it better. I was just about to say that.
Right, sorry, didn't mean to steal it. We mind melded your
Yeah.
thoughts to my thoughts.
And there's just not enough there to really justify a movie. And I know they went through I didn't even get into the sort of the making of like the writing of this, and like they had different ideas about what they wanted to do. Ultimately kind of scrapped a couple ideas that sounded maybe more interesting than this.
Anything you can say about any of those? Any like a word or that you remember that just jumped out? Like this actually did seem like one good idea.
Basically, they had a whole draft where
because you got to think something slipped through the crack. They can't all be bad ideas. Maybe they had something going on in there.
A writer's room
they had a whole
pitch.
draft that was very different. And then they were just like, it's not working. Let's make it simpler. Let's make it lighter in tone. And that's what we get, right?
And it's a bummer because you have all this overarching stuff happening in the Star Trek universe at this time. The Deep Space Nine is rolling. Voyager's not out yet, but you could use a tentpole movie if they were thinking the way we do now. Your tentpole movie sets up the next phase of Star Trek. It sets up some shit going on. There's the Gamma Quadrant. I don't know. This anomaly. It's fucking weird. I don't know. You could set up stuff that's going to lead into other Trek or tie things in more to elevate this movie to where it has an
That's
effect on the
definitely-
day-to-day goings on, you know.
It's definitely something they could have done and maybe should have done. I guess, like I said, they were trying to split that difference between Generations and First Contact, making it feel more like the show, but also like a movie, and it didn't really work.
Outside of Generations, did any of the TNG movies make money?
I think
man.
First Contact did well. That's why they brought
Really?
back
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes. Yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, that one felt the most like a movie. This one, again, I think they were trying to do their Undiscovered Country with the whale, or not Undiscovered Country, but the one with the whales from the OG. They're trying to do a lighter tone. Let's get some sort of comedy in there. Let's low stakes, you know, not having world-ending Borg encounters and stuff. But yeah, I mean,
No James Cromwell listening to Magic Carpet Ride.
No.
Oh yeah.
And again, with where kind of blockbusters movies have gone in the last years, like this movie, I don't think they would make it today. They wouldn't want to make. They'd make something more like the Abrams movies, where like big things are happening. You know.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
It is what it is.
And it'll be interesting to get to the Abrams verse where they're strictly made from the standpoint of what if strictly using movie brain and not TV brain whatsoever.
What if
basically.
we made these blockbusters? What if they looked slick? What if they were huge action? What if they didn't feel like Star Trek? Like, yeah, that is the questions we start asking.
And Colin, again, like you said, there's so many things they could have brought in. Why didn't they have Q? Why didn't they have lore? Why didn't they touch on the Dominion? These are all things that Picard seasons 1 through 3 is like, okay, now let's bring in these things.
Yeah.
Like, let's have
20
Q.
years later.
Having mentioned Ketracel White in the script and not giving Picard a chance in the movies to interact with the Dominion ever, like, dude, big
It's
oversight.
a little weird.
Yeah. But that is what it is. We've done it though. We made it through Star Trek 9. Next is Nemesis and out of the Abrams. But
I'm very interested to see how next month will go, because Nemesis does have a reputation as being, for a lot of people, the worst TNG movies.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with it. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys feel about it.
If it has some relationship stuff, my issue with the TNG films, and it might be because I don't watch the show like you guys, my connection to the OG crew was, those are my guys, that's my family, I love them.
Yeah.
The TNG crew's my coworkers. It's like, if I don't see you guys every day, I'm not really sweating it. Like, I don't feel like I know you all that very well, strictly just from your relationships in the movies. And if the next one has them really feeling like a cohesive crew, I will like the movie a lot.
Maybe it will.
that's what I'm hoping it's better.
I think you need to watch Picard season 3, because I think that solves a lot of the problems that these movies had. And it's just it's 10 hours long, so it has the advantage of having more time to develop these relationships, but it gives the rest of the crew more to do.
Imagine if I start Picard season 3 tonight
Yeah.
instead of watching Andor? Cargo Bay podcast just explodes.
No, it would just detonate.
Really,
like
you
the
just
Death
gotta
Star.
watch both, I guess.
But yeah, 10 hours for that. It is better. It's not perfect, but this, didn't love it. I hope Nemesis is better. It has to be. If the plot is at least somewhat coherent, like it'll probably be better.
Well, I have some bad news for you.
Fair enough.
We'll see next month.
Now, what if there was a Romulan clone, Mike?
Oh man.
I don't know. We'll talk about it.
As long as he's Tom Hardy.
And believe it or not, that'll be our 10th time. But first, we're going to say thank you a 9th time here for following us on our cosmic journey through the stars, our big long trek that we've been taking. Jacob, this was such a great idea. It's been such a fun time. I'm very nervous that we're going to be talking about another Transformers film coming up here. I feel like I'm not ready to go back to that universe.
No.
But I've been loving sticking to this one. It proves the formula works.
We did, we skipped last month because there's just so many new movies that we wanted to talk about coming out. We may have to, I don't know, I think we'll probably do it next month, right? But there are some more big movies coming out this summer that we want to talk about. Yeah.
Maybe take a break before Abrams. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll figure out our big marathon for the holiday season as well.
Yeah,
at some
but
point.
I can't even imagine.
Wow. What are we going to do?
Pirates of the Caribbean. Don't say it out
I
loud.
was thinking about it again today, but my issue is, would you want to talk about Johnny for 6 films or whatever the hell those are? That's so many.
We talked
I've
about
seen all
Michael
those
for
movies. And I
6.
only like the first one, so that'll be interesting. But
I imagine it being more painful than Transformers. We'll find out. I guess you guys, you let us know if you have any suggestions, listeners, that might be good for that.
It does
We're
not
not
have to be that.
married to
we've
any
done
of
a lot
those.
of we've done a lot of franchises already. But if there's any that we've missed that we're thinking of, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hit us up at normies_like_us and say, I've been watching Picard season 3. I love Rafi. We want to hear that. If you
Said
like Star
nobody
Trek
ever.
Insurrection, I assume you did rush the Capitol on the 6th, and that's the reason. So
Yeah, if this is your
if you wanna
favorite Star
email us,
Trek.
tag the FBI as well.
Yeah, that's alarming.
Yeah. But otherwise, we've been your host. This is Ensign Colin.
Mike, son of Moog.
And this is Captain Jake Luke Picard. Live long and prosper, normies. That's not what he says, but that's what I say.
Live long and podcast. Yeah, brother.
Yeah, make pod so.
Yeah, make pods so. Take it easy, normies. Enjoy those sunsets.
Bye.
Bye.